you said, so is Tim down visiting Hadley? Did Bonita go too?
And Chloe.
Oh, they all went, okay. Well, Jesse, they left you behind. Whoa, you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't see anybody's walked in. Is that a wasp?
It was a wasp. Yeah, what's Janet doing, David?
Well, I don't know whether she's been on Zoom.
She's been what?
On Zoom. On Sunday.
Well, last Sunday I was on Zoom, but she was here. But Andrea and Jacqueline were here, so.
Yeah. Had a good turnout for Cadences
Tell us about that.
Memorial. It was, I like never found the place.
I'm not surprised.
Well, I didn't know. See, she said that the address was 147 Patriots Landing. So I'm driving around this Patriots Landing Drive and then Patriots Landing Court. I didn't know that Patriots Landing was a section.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It was actually on Heritage Drive, but it's lot 147.
Okay, we're not.
I finally found a lady who was working in her yard and it told me where to go. And so, because I was getting panicky.
Yeah, well, sure.
It was getting about time, which I shouldn't have been panicky because it.
They weren't going to start without you?
Well, it didn't start for an hour and a half later.
Why?
Well, because they had people coming from different places that weren't there yet.
Because you have an
So, Phil and
Yeah,
Carl
we
were
have to
there,
admit.
so we chatted quite a bit. And, once we got there, I was able to call everybody to order. And
So, like, how many were there?
well, let's see, probably a good 20.
So, was it in a home?
It was in the backyard.
Oh,
you know.
her backyard?
Huh?
Was it her backyard?
Yeah.
where Cadence
But
lives?
that's just for,
No,
Is that for Zoom?
Cadence doesn't live there. Oh. Now, the house had been Cadence's dad's parents' house.
In the Cadence's grandparents. Oh, say her grandparents, okay.
Yeah, and they're gone. So, Teresa and Paul own the house. And it's right up, the yard goes right up to a dock. In the back.
Uh-huh.
Once one of like little Finger Lake things comes
Right,
out.
yeah.
And so they had like a couple of tents set up.
Uh-huh.
So we were able to sit out of the sun under the tent. And then
So who lives in the house?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, Paul does when he's not in South Carolina.
Was he there yesterday?
Yes, yeah, I got to meet him.
Now, does she have siblings?
She has a sister that's left.
Was she there?
She was there.
Okay.
I think, if I heard her correctly, I think she's from up near Gary.
Oh, the sister is?
Yeah, I think so. Because I thought I heard her telling somebody else. Not everybody there knew everybody. There are different segments of family and friends and things. And Cadence had a couple of her friends that were there. I guess Marie came later after I had left.
So, Chris, did Cadence live in that house for a while?
I think so.
Okay.
I believe that was the case. She's living with Marie now. I believe they live up off 231
Where?
north of Greencastle.
North of Greencastle.
Yeah. So they work at the same place, and I think they work the same shift.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a nice service, and I was glad to meet folks. Cadence's sister's real sweet. So,
Is she the one that had that video or whatever? Was there a video?
yes, there was a video. I didn't watch it because that was inside. You could watch it.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think it was one of those like
Hey,
they have
Siri.
at funeral
Is
homes.
Tim not on the phone? Can you not get a hold of
But
him?
Call Tim
I
Wicker
stayed
Mobile.
outside
Oh.
pretty much. I went through
Calling
the
Tim
house to
Wicker
get
Mobile.
out,
Oh,
you know. But it was
Hello.
nice.
Okay, I'm sitting here with Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't get, well, just tell him what you can't do.
You know, it's been.
Something about setting up a Zoom for
I
Sunday
think
school.
his sister said it's been 135 days since
she died.
Teresa died. That's a long time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Alright. Are you in Zoom right now?
yeah.
But I remember up in Scranton, we had to wait to inter bodies,
Yeah, we're in
you
it.
know, till the thaw.
Oh, yeah.
Every month, you know.
Well, Chris, was she cremated?
I see Annette.
I don't know
Okay. So go to
whether she
Zoom.
was or not, because they didn't have an urn or
Type in the
anything
meeting.
out there.
Join a
So
meeting.
I don't know. I
Okay,
didn't ask. I'll
And then
I'll
it's
find out.
say meeting
sometime
IDs.
soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Type in
Yeah, it was kind of a
Okay.
tender
987-1015
situation, you know, anyway, so I didn't
Okay.
3450.
Yeah.
exacerbate it.
All right. Join.
Yeah.
But it was,
Perfect.
it was nice.
Then do I join with computer audio or test speaker microphone?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I think we're good. Do you see us now?
And it, okay, Janet,
I
Janet,
think where Leanne would be if she
Janet?
didn't get that walking around.
okay,
Because
I can hear
if she
you now.
didn't have that, she was
okay.
loose and stuff. I mean, she'd be a lot
Yeah.
worse.
Okay, let's get
Spider,
further up here
eggs
now.
medium. With bacon.
And turn to page 295.
Okay, Jesse, I can't see video.
I know. How do I? It just pops out. I click start video and it says cannot video. Failed to start video camera. Please select another video camera setting.
Yeah, does it say pick video? Pick which one?
Yeah.
What's the options it give you?
UT vid, vmix video.
That's the one on UTV.
That's what I did. It won't let me. It says it's on it, but it's not. It's not checking out. It's still telling me that it's crossed out.
Right. And that can of working. Can you see Annette and Janet and me?
Oh yeah.
I can see you, Tim.
It just won't let me start the video. Select a camera, UT, it's checked.
Yeah, just try something different. See, try a different one. Well, there you go.
Perfect. Alright.
Now it's working?
Yep.
Okay. 295.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Oh. No. Another lady, you know, when one person's missing, it does make a lot of difference, Tim. Especially
You don't realize what all he does.
Yes.
It's kind of like his father.
Okay, let's try this again. 295. You're gonna have to sing loud.
Tell me the story of Jesus, write on my heart every word. Tell me the story most precious, sweetest that ever was heard. Tell how the angel came for us.
charge of reminding people this month.
I've got
and-
one.
Oh, you've got one?
Yep.
Darn, what will we do without you today, Jesse?
Okay. My father-in-law, Jim Mattis, was a natural storyteller, and he loved reflecting with his friends over tales, drawing them in with quick jokes and easy conversations. His favorite stories were about his time in World War II. On Jim's 80th birthday, we planned a big celebration for him, just as he had wanted. We rented out a banquet hall and hired caterers. Towards the end of the evening, Jim gathered us all to make a toast, and of course, tell us a story. Jim's unit, the 92nd Single Battalion, was part of General Omar Bradley's First Army. They were the ones who stormed the beaches of Normandy, France on June 6, 1944, D-Day. The success of that mission was a miracle, and although Jim hadn't been a part of the initial wave, he experienced a miracle of his own in Normandy. Jim was attached to the battalion headquarters company, which had been assigned to set up long-range communications. They landed on the beach where so many died mere days before, then traveled inland, picking their way through the infamous sloping hedgerows of the French countryside. They were just preparing to set up a radio tower when they came under heavy enemy fire. "Hit the dirt," the commanding officer shouted. "We've arrived at the party, boys." The men dropped to the ground. There was a ditch nearby. Some soldiers ran to it, others crawled. Anything to take cover from the attack. Bullets whizzed past, shattering mud as they went. Jim's unit hadn't been too far behind the battlefront, but they hadn't expected to encounter enemy troops so soon. There were shouts and cries of pain. They say you never see the shot that takes you down, but Jim saw it. A bullet speeding towards him. His eyes closed and he ducked, but not fast enough. White-hot pain exploded in the back of his head. The force of it rattled his teeth. This is it, he thought. I've been hit. The sounds of battle muted. Time stopped. Swimming before his eyes was images of his wife and new baby daughter, Frances. They were back home, waiting for him to come into the door. In that moment, Jim prayed. He prayed harder and more earnestly than he'd ever had prayed in his entire life. "I can't die here," he told God. "I need to see them again." Jim continued to pray until the gunfire died down and the all-clear was given. The pain was still pulsing at the back of his head. He was afraid to remove his helmet, scared that it was the only thing still holding his skull together. But he needed to know how bad the wound was. Bracing himself, Jim sat up, took the helmet off. There was no blood. Jim placed a tentative hand onto the part of his head where the pain boomed the sharpest. He could feel something protruding from the skin. Jim thought he was going to be sick, but then things started to move. In a blind panic, Jim yanked it free. He blinked at it in confusion, because between his fingers there was a bug. No, not just a bug, a huge yellow jacket. It was dead, but not before it stung him in the back of the head. Jim didn't receive medical attention right away. There were many others who were much more badly wounded, and the field hospital was swamped. It wasn't until 2 days later that Jim had finally got to see a doctor. In that time, his face had swollen so much he could barely swallow. The wasp stinger was buried deep in his skin and needed to be cut out. "I still have a scar," Jim said to the hushed party all those decades later. "It's the only thing I have to prove it happened, because I can't explain it. I know people will say that it's just a bee sting, that I was never shot, but I choose to disagree. I know that God was with me that day, and that he heard my prayer, and somehow he transformed that bullet into a bee." Jim since passed, but this story has stuck with me. He was never able to prove that what he experienced did happen, but that really didn't matter, because it was a real transformation, and to him, it changed his relationship with God. And as for me, his story shows how easily things could have gone and wound up differently. That everything turned out the way they did, and that a little boy who was in a World War II refugee camp growing up moved to the United States and fell in love with the daughter of an Allied soldier who maybe almost didn't make it home. And that's a miracle all its own.
Thank you. You're sweet. Let's have a moment of silence.
Jesse, would you turn the camera so we can?
Yep.
I want to say hi. Oh, there it is. It's like I'm trying to look at this.
Now, Annette, can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Janet?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Hi, Nat. Hi, Janet. Hi.
Hey, everybody. That was a pretty awesome story.
You know what, I must have,
I thought he was going to say that he found a bullet sticking out that hadn't gone all the way
yeah,
in.
I was in my phone's in my car.
I mean, those beasties can be deadly.
Well, Yellow Jacket, yeah.
Yeah.
Janet and Annette, can you guys see the Sunday school area? Or is it froze? It's froze? Okay.
Oh, you can't get in. You'll love those key fobs sometimes.
Oh, I lost it. Our picture's froze and I can't figure it out. So hopefully it switches back over at some point. But you can still hear us, right?
Yeah, we can go ahead with the Sunday
Okay.
school lesson. We can hear you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jesse.
No problem.
Well, the joke's on Dave and I this week. He sent this thing to us Thursday, and I just thought it was there, so I didn't even look at it until yesterday, and I'm like, oh, he said, I'm not gonna be there, so one of you needs to teach this class tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, good. So I read through it last night, and which is when I usually do, Saturday evening. But then I had to send him a note saying, well, you didn't, yeah. He said, well, that's part of the note. It only took 10 emails. He said, why do we take 10 emails to get you to figure out that which lesson do you want to teach? Tell me and I'll send it.
Oh,
So that's why you got it late. It's my fault. It's Dave's fault. He didn't look at it. It was my fault. I didn't look at it. And it's this Americans with Disabilities Act. It turns 30 years old on July 26th. Marked the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Signed by President George H.W. Bush on that date in 1990. The act banned discrimination against people with many types of disabilities and required reasonable accommodations and accessibility in schools, employment, transportation, public places, communications, and access to state and local government programs and services. And you know, really, when you think about the change that was making in so many organizations and people's lives, and switching a switch, it's kind of like the Civil Rights Act. Now all of a sudden we have to say that everybody is equal and protects people with against discrimination based on race, religion, sex, national origin, or other characteristics. They're kind of equal but yet different. And it said many public places and programs were simply not designed to provide access to people who needed special accommodations. So that not only took a mind shift, but it also took a financial shift, because if you've got to retrofit a building and so forth for the accessibility of people with disabilities, let alone the technology and everything else that goes along with that, it's like, wait a minute, I'm just barely surviving in my business, And now you tell me I have to do all of this too. It was kind of interesting how that parallels everything we're doing today. In the 1950s, the New York City school system barred this Judy Harriman from attending school and instead gave her only 2.5 hours a week of home instruction because she was in a wheelchair as a result of polio. The school administrators were unwilling to make the necessary changes to accommodate her in a classroom because they felt it was only one person. How much money do you spend taking care of one person, I guess, is what they were thinking. Well, thanks to the ADA, no child can legally be denied schooling because of a disability. Public spaces and workplaces constructed since the Act's passage are required to be built to be accessible to people with disabilities. On down it says, some business organizations said the cost of making the changes would have a disastrous, I mentioned that, the disastrous effect on small businesses struggling to survive. And the opposition from the proposed act, from some religious organizations, resulted in the churches being excluded from the mandate to make their buildings accessible. Some religious groups maintain that being required to make structural changes to their property was a violation of religious liberty and an improper intrusion of the federal government. Thus, the ADA does not apply to religious organizations and entities controlled by religious organizations. And many houses of worship did voluntarily make those properties accessible. And on September 25th, 2008, George W. Bush signed the ADA Amendments Act, which was the ADAA of 2008, saying that the amendment broadened the definition of disability, thereby extending ADA's protections to a greater number of people. Though some people have decried the expansion of what counts as a disability, others say the ADA needs to be further broadened to address barriers imposed by the digital age, and still others call for employment protection for people with disabilities during events such as the current pandemic.
May I ask a question?
You most certainly may.
Uh,
I don't know that I can answer it, but you can ask
okay.
it.
In the government center, was that elevator put in after there was no longer a school there, or was there that elevator? Okay.
Yes.
Because, I mean,
We never had an elevator when we went to school there. We were walking up the steps. And
well,
down
I mean,
the
I don't think that they would have allowed you guys on the elevator anyway, unless it was, you know, a handicapped person in a wheelchair.
But there were no handicapped kids in school.
Well,
back
right,
then.
because at that time, I mean, Mike went there, I forget what grade it was, but, I mean, I know I always had to climb the steps. I mean,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, at the time, I had no idea there was an elevator, but I guess
There wasn't an elevator, no.
Okay.
You know, when I was there, we had a boy who had braces on his legs. He just, you know, bucked up and climbed up with everybody else. You know, he didn't want to look like he couldn't do it. His mom was a teacher there, I think.
Well, when I went to Ohio for my cousin Marlene's funeral, I mean, this was a Quaker church. I mean, there was more than one floor, but they did have an elevator. Well, the day of the service, that elevator wasn't working really good. So, you know, some of the people, they really had to help up the steps, you know, even if they had wheelchairs or something. But, I mean, there was enough people there, you know, strong ones that they did do that. So it just took a lot longer for the service to begin because of that.
Well, the one question, the first question asked down here is, do you or does anyone you know benefit personally from the ADA access requirements?
Well, Jonathan,
I've lived it.
Yes, you have.
yeah.
And you know, so much so that even now when I go to ballparks, I'm thinking, now how am I going to get my thing? Oh, I don't have to worry about that. I think, how am I going to get him to the ballpark? That's still ingrained in me.
Ballpark is in Nathan or
Knowles.
Knowles games and stuff.
Yeah.
And is there a way to get him in?
No, not all of them, no.
Had you or anyone you know been harmed or unreasonably imposed on by an ADA rule?
Well, I don't know whether it's a rule or not, but I know that I have become quite aware of the fact that there are stairs without handrails.
Oh. The more you need them, the more you realize it, huh?
Yes.
Well, just down at Tim's Lake House.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'll go around, so I don't have to come down the stairs without handrails.
Yeah, to go outside, I go down in that room,
Right.
and then I go out, rather than go out through the sunroom.
Yeah, I did that part of the time because I mean, when I was coming out with my food, luckily Mike was standing there. And, you know, he held out his hand and, you know, and helped me down. So, but yeah, I just feel so much safer hanging on.
This lesson is so much more relevant to us than it is like Jesse and Annette.
Right.
You know, because we all get it.
I mean, I was the one that pushed for another handrail on those steps.
And good for you.
Yeah.
See, I see it from a different view. So, like at my house in Purdue, we were going to put a new sidewalk in and redo some of the concrete. And Purdue came in and said, if you do that, you have to do all these new ADA regulations, and it ran our cost up like $10,000, so we couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
That
That's
much
what I
more. That much more.
So we had to put in a new path and railing and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so even though the ADA doesn't necessarily include churches in that,
Well, it does now.
okay, so if this church were being built today, we would also have to have a bathroom upstairs,
Yes.
or easy
We're going to get into
access.
that. Yeah. Okay, the third question is, do you think that it's right that houses of worship are not required to be accessible to persons with disabilities? And explain your answer.
No, I don't think it's right. I don't think they should be exempt for moral reasons, but for the simple reason we have a tax break. We don't pay taxes, you know, on income that the church receives and all that. So, I mean, we're being essentially subsidized. I mean, all nonprofits are subsidized by the government in that. And so I think, you know, it's only right that we comply to something that, and in the long run, you know, you might get somebody who will want to be a part of it, or a member of your congregation will have a medical issue, or a child will be born that has medical issues. So that's my opinion. I don't think we should be exempt.
And that's where you see it North Putt.
What'd you say, Uncle Dave?
Where do you see it North Putt?
Ramps everywhere. On any place that has stairs, we have ramps. And then, like at the middle school, since it's 2-story, we have an elevator that had to be put in. But everything's up to code, for sure.
And all of this had to be added after the buildings were built?
Yes, some of it, yes, did. Because that building was built in 1969.
Oh, okay.
I
Yes.
wish the gymnasiums, you know, where you climb up, they all had rails, and they don't.
Yeah, that does make a difference.
Yes, some do not, but so I don't know how they get by with that on the bleachers. I guess in most gyms they'll have areas where the handicap are supposed to sit. So I guess they're saying they're providing space so they don't have to put the handrails on the bleachers, I guess.
In the middle of the bleachers, yeah.
Yeah, but there's not nearly that much space. I mean, there may be enough spaces for anybody with a wheelchair, but there's a lot of older people there that.
Yes, I totally agree with that, because we have that issue with mom sometimes. We have to help basically crawl up the bleachers.
Yeah.
On our hands and knees.
Well, if you want to be safe.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
And coming down is even more scary.
Yes, it is. We had that happen at Chittard High School this summer. When we went to play baseball there, we had to crawl up the bleachers.
Yeah. How'd you get down?
Same way, we crawled down.
Yeah.
Backwards.
I mean, I see so many other people going up and down, and these kids and some, much younger than I am, running up and down the bleachers, and I think I used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about people here without disabilities.
Depends on what
Yes,
you call
Ja-
a disability.
well,
His eyesight.
We're not labeled, Janet's not labeled with a disability, I'm not labeled with a disability.
No.
I've got a
However,
disability.
I need those handrails.
I've got
Yeah.
a disability sticker, but that's, I mean, I generally don't use it.
What's your disability?
Well, I got that when I had the broken leg.
Oh,
So you really legally you can't use that anymore because you don't have a broken leg anymore.
Well, no, I mean, he gave it to, I mean,
That's true.
yeah.
I have one also from my dad, so I could hang it up because I
Well,
still
this
have
one
it.
is for me. I mean, with Aunt Elizabeth, when I used to be taking her, when she would have some surgeries, and like down there at Kendrick Hospital at the time, she would say, I've got this handicap sticker, you can park in those places, and I would just let her out,
Yeah.
and make sure she got in safely, and then I would go park my car, or park her car. But I mean, I will at times, if park, use, of course, I really haven't. All the baseball games this year were at Ellis Park, and, I didn't really have that long to walk.
I always thought I would keep Mike's sticker in case I was out at night and I felt unsafe. I would park to be closer. I cannot do it because I've been there when people park in those places that really shouldn't.
Well, but how do you know they shouldn't?
Because I've seen them walk from the store to the car.
But I've also thought, I've been the same way, Barbara Jane, because I have that sticker too, and
I just can't.
it's pouring down rain, and I'm like,
I just can't do it. I
either.
cannot do it.
I
But,
never did use dogs.
but, how do we know what disability
That's
that people
true.
have? It could be a breathing it could be a breathing problem that if they walk very far, they're not going to be able to breathe, so that's why they're sitting there, or a vision
Well, but if
thing.
there's no license plate and there's no hanger on their vehicle,
Oh, I see what you're
and
saying.
you
I'm
see
sorry.
them go,
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
then
you would.
no.
I thought,
No,
oh,
no,
okay, no.
no.
But I mean, there are times that maybe I don't know whether there was or not, but like I've seen on Facebook where, they've taken pictures and somebody, has really put them down, for parking there. Well, I mean, and they've come back and they've had a really legitimate reasons,
Yeah.
that they need to park there.
But that's not the point I'm getting at.
Right. I know,
I'm talking about abusing.
right.
It says here too that some reports say that 1 in 4 members of every parish has a physical or non-physical disability as defined by the ADA. So that was interesting. 1 in 4 people who come to churches have some form of a disability. Now, whether it's like Jonathan, who is in a wheelchair almost all the time, or it's somebody who has a a breathing problem when they can't walk that far, or maybe a nerve problem where they can't walk that far.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of different reasons. Okay, what do you think God wants people who have no apparent disabilities to learn from the presence among us of people with disabilities?
I feel like so oftentimes people with disabilities are already excluded from things, maybe not because they can't physically, not because the physical accommodations aren't there, but because of their health. They just can't do it. So I think it's important for us to do everything we can to make their life easier.
Or an emotional reason why they can't come or won't come.
Yeah, it's,
Because I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I don't want to have anybody paying more attention to me than I should
that's
have.
right, yeah. And you, yes, exactly.
You could call it embarrassment, but that's
Mhm.
really not what it is.
Yeah, it's just an attention, you don't want attention drawn to you.
Now Agnes says, she doesn't, she'll start coughing and she says, I don't want to do that, It
But
embarrasses
you know
her.
what? I get it.
Yeah, I do too, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Even though it wouldn't bother us, I understand that.
there's coughing and there's coughing.
Yeah.
But that question, what do you think God wants people who have no apparent disabilities to learn from presence among us? I'm going to say tolerance.
Yes, absolutely.
And maybe patience.
Mhm.
Compassion.
Compassion, those are all good. Yeah.
Well, when Mike was in the younger grades, there was a little girl named Vicky in a wheelchair. And the kids, they all just wanted to help her, to push her. And she wanted to do it herself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's an independence thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm not completely helpless.
so there were times she did need help, but other times she wanted to do it herself. So,
Well, you have to admire that rather than sitting there waiting, okay, somebody push me,
right.
somebody help me, somebody do for me.
So, it looked like it was a chore, for her to get around, but she wanted to do it.
Okay, here's a Bible verse for discussion. It's Leviticus. You must not insult a deaf person or put some obstacle in front of a blind person that would cause them to trip. Instead, fear your God. I am the Lord. Why do you think it says, I am the Lord at the end of that?
To me, it says that God is the advocate of the disabled person. And, God is also our Father. And you take somebody that's father of a disabled child, part of their job is to protect that child, to look out for the interests of the child. If you have a deaf child or a blind child, you look out for that person. And, God is the father of every disabled person. It's like, don't be putting stumbling blocks in front of my kid.
Mm-hmm.
Any other ideas? Thoughts?
I guess you could see it as a way of questioning God's creation if you're going to sit there and mock someone with a disability. Because God creates everybody. He is the creator. So he's saying, if you're going to sit there and say something in front of a deaf person, or say something in front of or put something in front of a blind person, remember, I created them. I am the Lord. They are the way they are because of me. That kind of thing.
Good point.
That's a good point, and, yeah, and he has them blind or deaf for his reason,
Mhm.
because they're to serve their purpose. We don't know what it is. That's a good point, Jesse.
Let's see, we covered this down here when parking place, and I think we kind of beat that to a dead horse. Oh, maybe you remember the story of the, down here where, under John. Now they're in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here, a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." And the pool, it was supposed to have healing powers, but only at certain miraculous moments, when the waters were being stirred to the activity of an angel of the Lord. And they say that only the first one in the pool at such moments was healed. Do not appear to be older Greek manuscripts. What does that say? Do not appear to be old Greek manuscripts of John in both the New International and the Revised, as well as several other Bible translation verses related on it. In any case, at the pool, Jesus comes across a sick man who has laid, you can't even lick your fingers, turn the pages. And my eyes are watering now, and I can't read through the water, so hang on a second.
You dropped it on the floor.
Thank you. Okay, in the case at the pool, Jesus comes across a sick man who had been left beside 38 years, hoping to the opportunity to enter the pool at the right time and to be healed. When Jesus asked the man if he wants to be healed, the man explained that he had no one to help him into the pool. The man's response should not be viewed as an excuse. It is a clear statement about the shortage of support services in that time for people with disabilities. We could ask where this man's parents were, but if he's been lame for 38 years, his parents were probably old and quite possibly not even there. At a minimum, they may have been at work trying to make a living, delivering him poolside each morning. Jesus, of course, overcame all of that and healed the man, but not everyone has the opportunity to have miraculous healings. So the question is, are the support services for people with disabilities in our community adequate? What do you think, Barb Jane? Are they adequate?
Okay, so what comes to my mind is they're adequate. They're not easily accessible.
Okay.
Like, and here it says who decides who to pay for support services. I took Mike to the doctor one time at Mooresville, and the ambulance just to get him there and back was $500.
And the insurance doesn't cover
No.
that.
Now, luckily, Mike and I could do that,
Mm-hmm.
but not everybody can do that. And this link service, that's all well and good, but you can only schedule, like I have doctor's appointments lined up, well, I can't, you can only go 2 weeks out.
Oh.
And so then you call, well, there's nothing available.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So it's,
they're not adequate.
and what happened though for me, luckily, here again, Nathan and Amanda got me that bus.
Yeah.
But I would have been in trouble
Mm-hmm.
trying to get into doctor's appointments and this and that.
Because by that time, he couldn't move him, he couldn't move himself.
Oh, no, he had no leg, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this. You can't get him in a car, you can't get him in a truck, you can't. So, I would say in some cases, no. And how do I know?
And it depends upon the severity of the disability.
That's right.
At that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are the support services for people or persons who care for the disabled individuals? Was there support for you?
Yes.
Or within your family?
Well, I have my family.
So you don't really know whether there are support outside the family or not.
And Ed, how would you answer that question for North Hut?
If everything's adequate,
Yes.
yes, we are.
The school is,
The school is, yes.
but the
Yes.
community itself,
Oh. Well,
probably not.
I don't really go to any, that we've got 2 medical offices in Bainbridge, but I would say they're so small that it's adequate. There's no stairs, I know, at either one. Yeah, I think Bainbridge is good, yes. I don't see any issues there at North Putnam or Bainbridge.
You know, I even couldn't take Mike to an infectious disease doctor because their corners were, he was long and you couldn't make the corner
Uh-huh.
with his stretcher. It was
Oh.
Dr. Richardson out there, he was in that tiny little house. He couldn't even take him as a patient
Because of that.
because we couldn't get him in. I mean, physically couldn't get him into the building.
Yeah,
Not because of the ramps or anything, but because of walls.
because that building was not built for
Exactly,
medical,
yeah.
as a house.
But you know what? You can't fit every single need. I mean,
Well, but that's what this Disability Act is saying, that we
Yeah,
are
I-
supposed to.
well, you're maybe supposed to, but there's going to always be somebody, somewhere, something.
I mean, there's existing conditions where it's almost impossible
Yeah,
to really.
and like in a case like that, so you just take him to a different different, you know, you take him someplace else.
I haven't even thought about that before, because I haven't been in that situation, but you would think everything would be good, especially at a medical facility.
What that was, Annette, that was just a residence that had been made
Okay.
into offices, and he's no longer there. He's left and he's gone to Texas, so.
And that was a
Okay.
Habitat for Humanity house.
Suzanne says that was a Habitat for Humanity house. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
It's time, Suzanne. You need to.
Oh, all right, gosh, there's 2 more pages of questions. Thank you, everybody, for participating and helping out.
Thank you.
It made me think a lot of times about the things that, you know, again, patience, tolerance, compassion. I don't have a lot of that sometimes, so it helps me to stop and think about that.
Well, you know, even as I'm getting older, you know, I go with Nathan and they're just flying along at these ball games. I'm 20 feet back. I said, just go on. I'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron had his ball game yesterday. And I mean, yeah, they went, and I got a call from Mike about 1 o'clock saying that, I mean, I don't know whether this was true, but that it was going to be a jamboree, and, you know, they were going to be social distancing, and, you know, it would be hard to find places to sit, you know, to social distance. And he said that, you know, Sandy and Mike and Fran weren't going.
In other words, stay home, Mom.
Yeah, I mean, He didn't come out and say, I forbid you to go. I mean, he knew better than that. He doesn't always, but, so I thought, well, I could have gone to Cadences, but by that time it was too late. I mean, because I hadn't even told her that I was coming. So I sneaked. But I thought, you know.
I need everybody to walk up in the pew so I
I
can see
don't want to
everybody.
get sick.
So no,
I know, it's froze. I don't know why it's froze. It's kind of
that's
weird.
why yesterday
Maybe just log out completely, Jesse, and come back.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, you know, and I thought that too there, because it was around, I mean, I
had to
thought
shake hands with a couple of folks.
I thought it could be around people that I'm not generally around, so you know. For the most of those baseball games, you know, I was sitting with people that I had been around. I mean, not necessarily in their houses. I mean, they were not people that were going to be sick and go, I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't know that you've got this.
I know.
Oh,
Okay, for announcements, are women getting together this week?
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Well,
It's up in the
tentatively,
air.
yes.
Okay. Sun school report, Dave.
He's working on it.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
I had the Prince Sunday School open Sunday, August 9th, 2020, with ADA, and so that's in total attendance 8, total collection $20.
Any birthdays? Okay, don't sit down, Sharon. Let's all stand and repeat the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Hi, Sharon.
The pictures just froze on everything. I don't know why.
Well, can you just shut everything down and start over?
Yeah, but I don't have the
Goodbye, everybody.
You what?
I don't have the code.
Figure out what
Oh, here.
needs to be done and all.
Blurb again.
Yeah, but there's like a password for all they just left, so we don't need to worry about that.
My password is, you
Transportation.
know, don't forget to
Have I got enough
go
gas to do with it?
by our page and, you know, don't
Correct.